And I will invite the last speaker of this session now, Clémentine Decamp, to give her talk about the PANDA method for personalized differential analysis.
Yes, Jean-Fontaine, please, can you stop the, yes. Okay. So hello everyone, my name is Clémentine Decamp. I'm a PhD student and today I will introduce you to PANDA, which is a tool for personalized differential analysis. So my talk will be in 5 points. The first is why do we need PANDA? Because yes, we need PANDA. After, how does PANDA work? And then, does PANDA work? I spoil, but yes. And to finish, how to use PANDA. And after all of this, I will conclude. So why do we need PANDA? So here, I will take the example of the cancer. So in cancer, each tumor is different and has different deregulated genes. And this heterogeneity is important to study because these genes are linked with the survival rate, the response to treatment, etc. And traditional methods of fold change like DSEC2, EDGER, LIMA, etc. are made for a global comparison of between all the case samples and all the control samples. But here, in this case, you lose individual information. And if you use these methods to make a comparison between one case sample and all the control samples, you are very sensitive to batch effects and you are not statistically robust. So we need a method to make an individual comparison of one case sample versus all the control samples. And one method makes it's RANCOMP. But when we test it, first it's hard to use because it's not maintained and it gives a lot of false positive results. So to overcome all these limitations, we decided to develop our method, PANDA, a rank-based differential analysis method. And PANDA, of course, is a natural acronym of personalized differential analysis. Okay, so now I will explain how does PANDA work. So PANDA is a rank-based differential analysis method, which is designed for gene expression. PANDA works in 2 steps. The first is to initiate relative ranks between genes in control samples, and then from this, to determine the deregulation in each case sample. So I will describe these 2 steps a little bit more. So for each gene G, you want 2 lists, the L list of genes which are always low expressed in controls and the H list of genes with an higher expression in all the controls. So more explicitly, if you look at the gene expression in controls of the gene G in red and of 3 other genes, here purple genes, blue gene, and green gene. So here is just the gene expression distribution. And then we look at the difference between gene G red and other genes, and we obtain this. And here we can see that the purple gene has not a stable relative rank. So purple gene is not usable as a reference, but the blue gene and the green gene are stable relative rank, so we can use it as a list for the gene G. So at the end of this step, for each gene G, we have 2 reference lists with the ID of L genes and H genes. And then we can look at in one tumor, the position of G in the tumor compared to L and H genes. So here we can see that H genes become less expressed than G. So G is overexpressed. And here, L genes become more expressed than G. So G is underexpressed. And to define if G is really deregulated, we look at this proportion of HD and LU, and we compare this to a threshold. And this threshold is the main parameters of the Panda method. Here it's a particular case if we don't have L or H list, which is the case, for example, if G is very low expressed. We used a more naive method, which is named centile or quantile. And we compare the expression of G in the tumor to the expression, to the distribution of G in the control dataset. So here the distribution of G, and we set limits with quantile and the factor. And G is underexpressed if is under Q min divided by a factor, and is overexpressed if is over Q max by factor. And this quantile and this factor are the two other parameters of the method Panda. So now I will present some results of Panda. So first we use Panda on realistic simulations to compare Panda to other methods. So here you have two ROC curves with the false positive rate here and the true positive rate here. And by changing the threshold of detection, we can make a ROC curve of all the methods. So in red you have Panda, in black percentile, in blue the two versions of RANC-comp, and in green you have DESEC2 but used for one case sample versus all the control samples. And here on the left it's on normalized data, and on the right is before the normalization of data. And so what we can see here is that in red it's a Panda which gives the best true positive rate for a low false positive rate. And after, in the paper, because yes, my presentation is the highlight of the paper, we apply Panda on the lung cancer of the TCGA database. And here is the two main subtypes of lung cancer. So you have the lung adenocarcinoma and the lung squamous cell carcinoma. And here is the results of Panda. So you have each tumor here, and you can see the percentage of deregulation in each tumor. In black, it's the total, and in red, it's upregulated genes, and in blue, downregulated genes. And here we can see that there is more deregulated genes in lung squamous cell carcinoma than in lung adenocarcinoma, and it's normal because lung squamous cell carcinoma is more aggressive. Then we look at more in detail the lung adenocarcinoma, and by clustering the Panda profiles, we find 3 classes. So these classes are also clearly visible here on principal component analysis of the Panda differential expression, but we can't find these classes with the traditional differential analysis methods. And when we look at these 2 classes, sorry, we find a significant difference of 5-year survival rate, which is here. And after, from this, we extract 37 biomarkers whose deregulation is related to the 5-year survival rate. So here you can see that we classify the tumors by the proportion of deregulation of these biomarkers. And we obtain this on the TCGA. And after, we validate these biomarkers on an independent cohort from the Grenoble Hospital, so the CHU Grenoble-Alpes. And we obtain the same results. And here, which is also interesting, is that this cohort is in a microarray, and this cohort is in RNA-seq, so it's 2 different methods to analyze the gene expression. And Panda is robust because it gives the same results. So now I will explain to you how to use the Panda. So Panda is available as an R package on GitHub. And there are two vignettes to follow to understand how to apply it. So the first vignette is vignette simulation. So here you put your data and you can make a realistic simulation on your data directly, which allow you to choose the different parameters according to your data. So here, for example, it's a sort of RUG curve to choose the best threshold. And the second vignette is vignette Panda, which is a vignette to apply all the Panda test pipeline. And this vignette generates this material and method section, which is easy to use. Sorry, so I think it's time to conclude. So yes, Panda is a promising method which give good results both on simulation data and biologically with the application of the lung cancer. Panda is a method which is a complementary analysis to population-based methods by fold change. It gives new information and more information, but it's not a replacement. About the limitations of Panda, it's the main limitation is that you need a lot of controls. So 10 can be set as a minimum because we need a lot of controls for the step of list and also the step of simulations to choose the parameters and for the quantile method too. And one limitations that we can say is that Panda is mainly tested on simulations, even if the results on real data are very encouraging, and it's hard to compare methods without using simulations. And about perspectives, here I only present Panda by this application on gene expression and cancer study, but it's not the only application. In fact, Panda can be used for every quantitative value and for every situation when you have a control condition and case that you want to compare one by one to the control. So thank you to Magali Richard and Daniel Jost, which are the project leader and also my PhD supervisors. And all our collaborators on this project, Florent Chiffard, Elisabeth Brambilla, Sophie Rousseau, and Sadi Kochbin. And thank you to all the MASH team. And thank you for your attention too. It's finished.
Thanks, Clémentine. Nice talk. Alors, les questions. So Clémentine was quick in her talk, so we can actually have lots of questions. Start typing or raise your hands. So if you raise your hands, we can actually give you a microphone, and it's maybe more comfortable to interact directly with the speaker. But meanwhile, a first question on the chat is Miriam saying, do you think it will work for proteomics like analysis or data sets? What do you think about proteomics, Clémentine?
Yes, if it's a quantitative value, it can work. So I think it depends of your type of value. like analysis or data set? I'm not sure to understand.
Quantitative proteomics, I think that's a question.
Yes, for quantitative proteomics, it can work well. And
clap, clap. Yes, MS spectral counts, thanks.
Yes, if you have enough controls, it's totally okay.
I don't know, maybe MS data isn't as, maybe it's more noisy and less complete than what you get with RNA-seq, but.
If you have a...
Attends, Myriam is raising her hand. Can we give her the microphone? Maybe it'll be easier if she can actually express her questions herself. Yeah.
Hello, you hear me?
What?
Okay, well, the question was for what you mentioned regarding the low reproducibility sometimes, and also the lower counts that we get with proteomics rather than, for instance, RNA-seq or microarray. So I was wondering if this could mess with the method in Panda, or if it will be okay.
Because you have a lot of low value, it's a problem?
Yeah, usually, yeah, the counts, the spectral counts are lower, and also, for instance, the flux cytometry for the proteomics is easily to saturate. At the end, we don't have really homogeneity even between the same group. So if it really needs a strong correspondency into the same group, or if it could work with messy controls.
In fact, you just with Panda, you are more robust to the batch effect like this because you look at the sample one by one, and you just look at the rank in one sample and not the global expression of one sample compared to others. So I think it can work. I don't see a reason of what it can be a problem. You just have to adjust the parameters. For example, when you make the L and the H list, you can be less restrictive and say you just want a stable rank in 90% of controls and not 100%. But I think it can work, yes.
Okay, thank you. Looks really promising. Thank you.
Actually, one of the issues I think with proteomics could rebound with Mitra's question, which is the missing data, missing values. How does Panda deal with missing values from one sample to another?
It doesn't. If it's a missing value in one control data, for example, control sample, you just ignore it and take the other control values. And if it's missing data in your case sample, you can't analyze these probes, but it's not a problem. Panda work with missing values. You just don't analyze it. But,
okay, Mitra. Myriam, you still have your hand raised, but is that a mistake, or do you want to add something? Yeah, Mitra is satisfied. Up. And Myriam, it was just still up. Okay. Okay, alors 15h30. We're actually at the end of this session now.
It's a poster session.
Huh?
It's a poster session.
Yes, it is. So thanks everybody for attending this session. And thank you all the speakers. Merci Clémentine et tous les autres. Et I also want to thank actually the people in the staying in the dark over there, the producers, Julien and Yves. are the guys who are not showing, but actually getting everything working technically. So thanks, guys.